Good evening. My name is Tim Voss. I'm the director of the School of Journalism at Michigan State University. And thank you. And by virtue of being the director of the School of Journalism, I'm also the chair of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame Committee. I'm very pleased that we can honor 6 well-deserving inductees this evening. So this would be the time that I turn over the mic to our Master of Ceremonies, Rochelle Riley. She called in sick, so other duties as assigned are beginning right now for me. So I have the joy of welcoming you here this evening and getting things underway. I want to acknowledge the committee members who do a tremendous job of vetting a number of nominations that come in and selecting only those who are most worthy of the honor. The members of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame Committee are Lori Brost, Michael Fulhage, Janet Geisler, Bob Giles, Joe Grimm, Felicia Henderson, Sam Clement, Beth Conrad, Maureen McDonald, Jam Sardar, Kendall Wingrove, Susan Agar, Eric Seals, and Kat Stafford. Thank you to the committee members for the hard work that you do and that allowed this evening to be possible. I want to say a special thank you to Kendall Wingrove and to Betsy DeSantis, who works in the journalism office. They did a lot of investigating over the last year to find some missing names that had been left off the rolls for a while. They searched the archives, they looked through old programs. We now have a complete list of past inductees into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame because of their hard work. Thanks, Kendall, and thank Betsy for that. So while I'm thanking folks, I want to thank our silver sponsors for tonight, the Nissan Group of the Americas and the Detroit Auto Dealers Association. Thank you as silver sponsors. Our gold sponsor this evening is the Michigan Political History Society, and our platinum sponsor is Hyundai Motor North America. So thank you to all of our sponsors for making this evening possible. So we're here to honor good journalism. Journalism these days is perhaps not all that appreciated as a way of understatement. It is even sometimes seen as an enemy. Alas, journalism is extremely important. We recognize that in an election year, what it contributes to a democratic society. It also contributes to how communities get to know each other, how you understand the place that you're at, how you perhaps contribute then to that community. So that community building vitality that is so important in Michigan happens at least in part because of journalism. Now, not every bit of journalism has done a great job of creating community, but we are honoring great journalists this evening, and we're very excited that we can be unapologetic supporters and advocates of journalism in our society. So before dinner starts, we are going to hear about the Wade H. McCree winners for this year, and I invite James Tarrant to come to the podium to introduce this year's winners. Or we'll have John Bebo do it instead.
James Tarrant is unavailable because he wanted to be back there. It is great to see everybody. This event is proof positive that journalism is still thriving. There are so many great minds in this room, and it is so good to see everybody yet again tonight. And to honor some great journalism through the Wade McCree Awards. Wade McCree was a pioneer in law in this state. He was the first African-American judge on the Wayne County Circuit Court, if you can believe that. He was the first African-American judge on the U.S. District Court for Eastern Michigan. He was the first African-American judge on the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. And he was the second African-American Solicitor General in United States history. And he was a Michigan native, and we can be very proud for that. The McCree Awards are presented by the Michigan Press Association Foundation, and they recognize Michigan journalists whose work fosters greater public understanding of our legal and justice systems. There are four McCree Award winners this year, and I would like to welcome you four, as I call your names, to the stage to receive your hardware from my colleague, Jim Tarrant. The first is Kara Berg from the Detroit News. Kara wins the McCree Award for an investigation of how 128 children in Michigan died of suspected child abuse after a complaint had been filed with Protective Services. It was a massive job of records digging and a great job of upholding one of the highest values of our profession, which is to give voice to the voiceless. Congratulations to Kara Berg. Our second McCree Award winner for this year is Lauren Gibbons of Bridge Magazine, Bridge, Michigan. Yeah, I launched Bridge Magazine, but have trouble keeping up with the times. Lauren earns this award for an investigation of millions of dollars in juvenile court costs that were exacted on families for teenage mistakes. Sometimes as much as $100,000 or more per family. Weeks after Lauren's story ran, the legislature changed that law and got rid of most juvenile court fees. So congratulations to Lauren. Katie, you want to come up and accept the award for Lauren? I'll accept the award for Lauren. She's going to have to, holding a ransom till I see her. Our third award winner this year is Andrea Sahuri from the Detroit Free Press for an investigation of white private security guards harassing black citizens for more than a decade at the Renaissance Center in Detroit. She dug through court records, she dug through complaints, she had great sources. It was a tough story to do because we're talking about a private security company. And she got a pretty immediate response from General Motors. They suspended the arrest powers of that private security force. So congratulations to Andrea. And is she here or someone accepting the award for her tonight? As if Jim Schaefer doesn't have enough awards. This is not yours, this is Lauren's. Go get yours over there. Yeah, you're welcome. Last but not least, certainly not least, Heather Catallo from WXYZ TV. Heather is a master at doing investigative reporting for television, which is an entirely different and difficult genre. She has been on the case of the abuse of guardianship in probate courts for years. She's made progress in getting reforms, and she is honored for that work tonight. Heather Catallo. Carolyn will accept on Heather's behalf. Thank you, Carolyn. And with that, I think we're going to have some chicken.
Before we proceed with the awards for this year, I'd like to ask you to pause for a moment of silence as we remember past Hall of Fame inductees who passed in the last year.
We hope you're enjoying your meal tonight, but as you sit and eat, many of you in the crowd might be wondering, what would Molly Abraham think? Because her opinion of a meal in a restaurant could make or break it. Molly's restaurant reviews are the highlight of a career that spanned more than 50 years and practically every major print publication in Detroit, including The Times, The News, The Free Press, The News, Again, and Our Magazine. Not only was Detroit in her blood, Molly was born there and got her degree from the University of Detroit. Her writing, reviews, and larger-than-life personality helped her achieve something few newspaper people ever do, become a celebrity. The Free Press bragged about it when she joined them, and one Detroit restaurant even named a salad after her. But she didn't just review restaurants. Molly served as a mentor to numerous other journalists during her decades behind a desk. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, but she's with us tonight in spirit. A round of applause for Molly O. Abraham.
And Jim McFarland will accept on Molly's behalf.
Thank you. No. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, good evening. Can you hear me all right? Good, let's do this. Thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday evening here with us. I think I can speak on behalf of all the inductees tonight when I say your support of the past, present, and future of Michigan journalism is truly appreciated, and the support of families and friends is valued as well. If you had told me last April, after I received one of the greatest honors of my life, by gaining admission to this media mountaintop, this press room paradise, that I would be standing at this podium for a second year in a row, would have gone on FanDuel and taken the under right away. But, especially since I was either so arrogant or so stupid as to not write down a single note, thinking I could wing my acceptance speech because I knew it so well, and completely forgot to thank most of the people who helped me get up here in the first place. So, I get a do-over, but it's not about me tonight. I've told this story and written about it numerous times, so you've heard it before. Forgive me, I'm going to tell it again. So I was driving home from this campus a year ago, all aglow with pride, bursting with a sense of career achievement. My wife, Karen, a very pragmatic woman, turned and asked me a question I had not anticipated. She said, "So, who are you going to pay this forward for?" I said, "What? Can't you just revel in my joy and ego along with me?" She said, "No." And then immediately, only one name leaped to mind. Molly Abraham. While familiarizing myself with the inductees in the hall, I was shocked, I tell you, to find out that Molly was not already enshrined among these immortals of Michigan journalism. Not only was she a dear friend to me and to many in the Motor City, but she was also an extraordinary writer and columnist whose name was and still is associated with restaurant reviews in Metro Detroit. What's more, she embodied Detroit newspaper history, as you just saw on the screen. I can't prove it, but I'm willing to wager she's the only writer in history to ever work for the Detroit News twice, the Detroit Free Press, the Oakland Press, the long-defunct Detroit Times, the Detroit Sunday Journal strike-induced, and Our Detroit Magazine. For a writer whose career began in an era where women were considered little more than office decorations and resigned to the society page, to become one of Detroit's most admired and popular journalists, even though half her face was covered by a menu, nothing short of incredible. And along the way, she earned that which many people claim is in short supply in journalism today, trust. Detroit celebrity chefs trusted her, knowing that unlike many critics who take the word critic way too seriously, she would give their prized entrees a fair and measured appraisal. Restaurant owners trusted her. In many cases, Molly wouldn't arrive on a new dining spot's opening night. She would wait a few weeks for them to get their act together before announcing the eatery to her readers. And her readers trusted her most of all, placing their hard-earned Detroit dollars against her recommendations for a rare night out on the town. Her fellow journalists trusted her too, virtually lining up at her desk every day for restaurant references, which always offered with grace and good cheer. I took full advantage. You may not know it to look at me today, but I was once young and good-looking, and every time I would have a new date, I would call Molly. Ma, first date. She wants a steakhouse, under 50 bucks, a reporter's budget. And she'd immediately make a recommendation, and she always nailed it for me. She was a champion for her fellow journalists as well, a mentor to countless newsroom newbies. She helped lead the Newspaper Guild of Detroit organizing drive that unionized the Detroit News editorial department for the first time in that paper's history. And she walked out with the union when the Guild was forced to go on strike in 1995, continuing to review restaurants for the Weekly Sunday Journal. In fact, one of the paper's leading advertising slogans was, "Only the Sunday Journal has Molly Abraham." When I reached out to ask for letters of support for her nomination, I was shocked, I tell you, by the speed and enthusiasm by which so many people, everyone I asked, agreed to craft documents on her behalf. Celebrity chefs, restaurant owners, fellow scribes. The only person who declined was battling the flu at the time and felt he couldn't be well enough to do justice to her influence. But yet, surprisingly, we did receive pushback in some corners. Molly Abraham was encouraged several times over the years to apply for induction into the Hall of Fame, but she declined. Shouldn't we honor her memory now and her wishes? To which I've replied, we don't know why Molly shied away from entering the hall. No one's been able to tell me. My fellow inductees know it takes a whole lot of work to prepare your induction package. Even more so, I discovered when you're doing it for somebody else and trying to pick out their favorite and most impactful stories. Maybe she just didn't want to take the time. Perhaps she felt she needed no more glory. Her face was seen by thousands, even though it was hidden by a menu. Whatever the reason, my response has been, we're not doing this for Molly. Less than 2 weeks today, she'll have been gone from us for 1 year. We're doing it for those who loved her, who respected her phenomenal talent, want to preserve her legacy for all time. And given her name, she'll always be at the top or near the top of that list. Still, to those of us who knew her, I wonder, what would she think about all this? We'll ask her someday. So many people to thank for this. First and foremost, her son, James Kenneth Graham, better known to the world as the film actor, former punk rocker, and rapid-fire novelist Jimmy Doom, sitting right over there. He was there with answers and insights at every turn. In fact, we had asked to accept Molly's induction up here together, but the Hall of Fame committee, perhaps wisely, said no. They probably feared some new age version of Red Fox and Slappy White. But he surely has his mother's writing genes. If you're not familiar with his online site at Roulette Wheel, that's W-E-A-L, Roulette Wheel, where he creates an original short story every single day, you've got to check it out. I want to thank Molly's other son, too, Robert, who could not be here, for offering his opposing viewpoint. But I especially want to thank Team Molly, the incredible fellow Hall of Famer Sue Whitehall, who did yo-person work in the newspaper archives, and Molly's former colleague, Rob Musial, who himself was inducted to another Hall of Fame just last month. Congratulations, Rob. Molly, welcome to the 5-star experience of journalism, Molly. Your reservation has been on hold here for quite some time. As they drag me off the mic, a quick thank you to my dear friends and former colleagues, Dr. Tim Kiska, and again, Sue Whitehall, who led the charge to get me up here last year, and I thank you sincerely. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
John Bebo started his career in newspapers before he even became a journalist. He went from a 7th grader who delivered the Lansing State Journal to writing for his hometown paper. Then the Western Michigan grad crisscrossed the state from the Traverse City to Ann Arbor before joining the Detroit News. He made his mark there by covering everything from crime and corruption to exposing problems with the city's water and sewer system to sexual abuse by Catholic priests. He also covered the war in Iraq, not just for Detroiters, but for almost 100 papers around the country. Among his many honors, he won the Michigan Journalist of the Year 3 times in a row. But John will likely be best known for changing the way we produce and consume the news. As editor-in-chief, he helped MLive transition from print to digital, then helped launch the Center for Michigan and Bridge Michigan, a nonprofit that has won hundreds of awards, served as a model for other outlets, and whose work has made a difference in the lives of all Michiganders. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bebo.
I'd like to congratulate everybody else who's up here today. It is an incredible honor to be on this stage with my colleagues tonight. I'm really grateful to have a bunch of forms of family here tonight. First of all, my daughter Delaney and my wife Monica. Thank you. My Bridge family, who will be the first to correct that I never won Journalist of the Year, but you have now won 4 straight, so let's be clear about that. And my River family, a lot of my friends and family who hang out in northern Michigan together. A beautiful family in its own right here. We pulled them off a river in western Wisconsin this morning, and they drove all the way over here. So can't thank you guys enough for being here. I'm a little guilty about it, though. About 80 years ago, pretty legendary fella named H.L. Mencken called newsrooms and newspapers and journalism the life of kings. And that's what it felt like for me. The ability to question the powerful, shed light on injustice, and mainly just tell good stories. This felt like just a gift of a profession. And I loved every single minute of it, and I was mentored by a lot of kings in Michigan journalism. Starting with Jim Herman at the Traverse City Record Eagle. I think he was the last major Michigan journalist to rise to real leadership. He was on the Pulitzer board, and he hadn't gone to college. He was a high school quarterback, and he was a tenacious writer, and man, he loved this profession, and he taught all of us at the Record Eagle to believe in ourselves and to fight for great stories. Jim ultimately passed me off to his golf rival, Ed Pedakevich, at the Ann Arbor News. You always knew where he stood with Ed, any of those who worked with him who are in the room today. And I really thrived on that kind of blunt feedback. And it continued at the Detroit News, where I was in a newsroom run by Bob Giles and in another newsroom run by Mark Silverman. And it continued at MLive when we started it, when I worked for a man named Mark Hopshine, who had an incredible vision there and got that off the ground, and led with kindness every day in the office. And then I went to work for Phil Power at the Center for Michigan and Bridge. And I'm truly blessed to have worked for kings in Michigan journalism. But to describe this profession life of kings or a kingdom isn't right. It excludes an entire gender. And as I've had time to reflect on my career, it wasn't those kings who led the newsrooms who had the highest impact on me. It was the middle managers, who were often women, and that was often as high as they were going to rise. They had incredible impact on me. Traverse City, Jim Herman's city editor was Lorraine Anderson, and from Lorraine I learned concentration. That woman, I can see her sitting at her old terminal right now, and she would sit there for 6 hours to get the next day's edition out, and she never looked up. She never got up. She would call you over, and she called me over more than most, to get the story right. Dedication, like I had never seen in my young life at that time. In Ann Arbor, I worked, my direct editor for a while was a woman named Tina Lamb. Yeah, how about it? Tina better be in this Hall of Fame. If she's not, we're going to get her in here. Tina was my assistant city editor, and she did something at a time when it wasn't done. Tina told a full-page story at the Ann Arbor News before she went to the Free Press of her own experience with sexual assault. And she told it for the public. She wanted the public to know that story. And she told it in such a harrowing and complete way long before the Me Too movement. And it opened certainly my eyes and many others to what so many women go through in this world and in professional life in this state and others. And I never forgot that story, and I still have a copy of it. Later, I competed against Tina when she was at the Freep and I was at the News covering casinos. And when I see her, we joke about that. I know she took years off my life. It is no fun to compete against someone like Tina Lamb. But when I was at the Detroit News, my direct editors, the people who kept me in line and taught me, they were all women. The city editor was Judy Diebold. Judy had more damn fun than any editor I ever knew. She was the last editor I know who would actually take you out for a martini at lunch. And I treasure that, those few times I was the one who got picked. But next to Judy, there were people like Joanna Firestone. I'm so glad you're here. Joanna, she just got it done. She was quiet, and she knew more in that head than most of the people around her, and she'd pull you aside, and she'd tell you where you were screwing up, and she'd help you get it right, and she always did it anonymously. And you lifted so many people, and I'm so grateful to you. And beside Joanna, there was a woman named Flora Rathburn. I don't know if people are going to remember her. She went on to the Cleveland Plain Dealer after she was at the Detroit News. Flora smoked Marlboro Lights, and she glared at you. And if you made her smile, man, you knew you were going to get on the front page. But more often than not, she'd give you a lecture, like, Bebo, get over here. How many times do I have to tell you, once you let me in your story, it is no longer your story, it is now my story. She taught me how to write, and bless your soul, Flora. When I went to MLive, my office was next to the sales director's office, and in newspapers, you don't really know the salespeople. You're on different floors, and you're not friendly, really, and you don't appreciate them. But at MLive, I worked next to a woman named Ellie Cruz, who was the sales director. And I just watched her, and I understood what hustle was. And I finally understood who kept the lights on and who paid the bills in our profession. And she was a spark for me when it came time for me to go out and hustle and make money for the profession. Ellie, still to this day, is at my side as a friend and helped me get there. I was at the Freep just for a minute, and that's because I had this great opportunity and an idea of what the Center for Michigan could become. But while I was at the Freep, I was seated directly behind Jennifer Dixon, and I felt extremely small. Jennifer had more files on more politicians and more people on her desk than I would have compiled in the next 10 years there, and then she would get them on the phone. My God, I would never want to answer a phone with Jennifer Dixon on the other end of it. She showed me up close and personal what excellence was every day. And after all that, I spent 17 years at the Center for Michigan and Bridge, Michigan. And a lot of our work, especially in the early days when nobody knew who the hell we were or what we were trying to do, was gaining the trust of others and partnering with others, like Megan Holland at MLive, who's here tonight, and gave Bridge its first big break by convincing the editors at MLive to publish the first Bridge content. And other partners like Cranes, Mary Kramer, who is probably the best entrepreneur I've ever met in the news business. We partnered on content and things, and I learned a master's degree of information from Mary Kramer. And she was teamed with another incredible editor who's here tonight, Cindy Goodacre. And Cindy and I hired a correspondent together once to cover Lansing for both Bridge and Cranes, and I felt like we could complete each other's sentences, and she was on it, and it was such a great partnership. And we worked for years with Michigan Radio and people like Zoe Clark, who I think is part of the future of this business for years to come. Don't you dare leave this business. And then we had the in-house journalists that we were able to recruit. Robin Erb, Paula Gardner, Kelly House, Lauren Gibbons, who won a McCree Award tonight, Chastity Pratt, who just left the New York Times after leaving the Wall Street Journal to now go back to the Wall Street Journal. I think it's hard to keep up with her. We have been blessed with incredible talent in our newsroom, and this is where I'm not going to forget you guys, a lot of you who are here tonight too. Ron French, who's here, who was the first person to believe in Bridge, and it wouldn't be around without you. And Mike Wilkinson and Jonathan Osting, who just won his second Michigan Journalist of the Year award. I just got credit for it here a few minutes ago. That was kind of nice. Bill Emko, who got us audience. David Zeman, A.J. Jones, Joel Kurth, Steve Henderson at Bridge Detroit, who in all the jobs Steve has, he's so passionate about what he's building over there at Bridge Detroit. And one of my all-time favorites of all the people I've ever worked with anywhere in life, Amber DeLinde, is here tonight. Amber's the membership director and has gotten things done all across the state for years and has been one of the joys of my career. But perhaps most rewarding is the next generation of journalists that we've been able to work with at Bridge, people like Ariel Hines, Janelle James, Isabel Lohman, Asha Lewis. If you don't know them yet, you're going to. They're incredibly talented people who are coming up and keeping this profession alive. And at Bridge, it's now all led by my dear friend, thought partner, and the best CEO that the Center for Michigan has ever had and probably ever will has, Katie Locker, who's here. Who is leading Bridge with her COO partner, Diana Rogenson, in ways different from traditional media companies, and in ways that I am fully confident will assure that the phrase life of kings will never describe this profession again, because they're committed to a much more representative future in our business. All of them, all of these women I'm mentioning tonight, didn't benefit from a male buddy system. They faced way more challenge and adversity on their paths to success than I did. They demonstrated more grace, intelligence, and diligence than I ever could, and they shaped me as a journalist. And I'm extremely grateful. Finally, I want to mention the four most important women in my life. We'll start with the youngest, Delaney. She's a freshman here at Michigan State, majoring in criminal justice and psychology. Your mother and I, you are our future. You are our universe, and we're so glad you're here. And Monica, if you were a bookmaker, you probably wouldn't have given us much chance. A singer and a journalist in a long-distance relationship. We didn't have any money, but here we are, and I'm up here because of my partnership with my wife, my partner, my teammate through everything. She's the one who I came home to and shared my frustrations and my dreams. She's the one who told me it was okay to take chances and to try things. Thank you. This is your award. Monica's mom, Mama J Bird, a beautiful woman from Texas. She clipped every story I ever wrote, put it in notebooks, and that told me that people were reading. Okay, it was my mother-in-law, but people were reading. And I figured, man, if it's going to matter to her, maybe it matters to some others. And finally, last, my mother, who passed away last October, or she'd be here. She'd be quite charming for some of you. My mom didn't come for much, and she wasn't raised to believe in herself. She was a court transcriptionist, and she taught me the love of language. She worked in our home office, and she would read out loud, swear, cuss, and talk back to attorneys, and revel in the language of criminal defense witnesses on the stand as she was typing them out. And I started listening, and I think it partly led me to journalism. She also told me that you can be anything you want to be. And I didn't forget that, and I tried to live up to that. And so what I want to leave you with tonight, my niece Ella is here, and my daughter Delaney, and all the young journalists in this room, especially the young women. You can be anything you want to be. And it's in thanks to so many people who came before you, especially women who worked so hard for it. Thank you.
Monday Morning Health Edge.
Many of you know Carolyn Clifford as an anchor at WXYZ TV in Detroit, where she has worked for more than 25 years. Over that time, she has done incredible work on the air, interviewing everyone from Oprah to Obama to Magic Johnson. She put together My Answer to Cancer and was part of a team that won a Murrow for its investigative work into Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. But this Spartan alum is also being honored for the work she does behind the scenes. Carolyn is an inspiration and mentor to countless young journalists and a literal savior to others in the community. She once arranged a full scholarship for an unemployed veteran and saved an 88-year-old former mayor from being evicted. Over the years, she has won many awards, including back-to-back Best Anchor honors from the Michigan Association of Broadcasters, as well as 3 Best Anchor Emmys. She has also been honored by numerous community groups for her service. And tonight, we're honored to add the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame to that list. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolyn Clifford.
Thank you. Those are my daughters making all that noise over there. I appreciate you both. I love you, love you. I want to say good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here, and congratulations to my fellow nominees. Such a proud night for all of us. I first want to say thank you to the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame Committee who allowed me to join this distinguished group of journalists. Thank you so much for your vote of confidence. I must also extend my heartfelt gratitude to renowned Hall of Fame journalist and amazing photographer Linda Solomon for her unwavering support and for nominating me for this prestigious award. Linda, we've done many things in the community together, and your belief in me and our shared commitment to serving our community have been truly, truly inspiring. I certainly love you. Reflecting on my journey in broadcast journalism, I am reminded of the invaluable mentorship of my very first news director, Ross Woodstock at Channel 6, the CBS affiliate in Lansing. His guidance taught me to write, to produce, to report with integrity, and to always strive for excellence. One moment from Lansing stands out for me. A family came to our little station saying their mom was missing. She had left her meds at home, but without police saying foul play was involved, that story was not supposed to make the news. It was the weekend, and I was the weekend anchor and a producer and writer and editor. But something in our gut, all of us in that newsroom said, you gotta go with this story. Well, it turns out 2 boys had come to her home, pleaded to use her phone, grabbed her, stabbed her, and threw her in the trunk of the car, and were joyriding around Lansing in her car. But we put that story on the news that night with the description of the car, and just a few hours later, police found the car on the side of the road, and she was in the trunk, bleeding out. We, as a team at Channel 6, helped save a life, and that taught me early on the real impact and power of journalism. I am profoundly grateful to my colleagues at Channel 7 and certainly my bosses, my general manager and vice president, Mike Murray, whose unwavering support and positivity have been a constant source of strength to me. My news director, Kenan Oliphant, who leads our newsroom through this ever-changing news business. And I have to give a shout out to legendary Channel 7 meteorologist and Hall of Fame meteorologist Jerry Hodak was in the room tonight. I loved working with Jerry at Channel 7. He was always a friend and a wonderful colleague. And his daughter, Jane, who is here, she was one of my very first producers at Channel 7. But today, Jane is a news director at WJRT in Flint. So proud of you, Jane. And Bob Giles, who helped hire me at Channel 7 25 years ago. Thank you. I knew I was doing cartwheels because I was born and raised in the city of Detroit, always grew up watching Channel 7 and really, really wanted to work there. And it was so hard to get in the doors of Channel 7, but you opened those doors for me, so I thank you, Bob. All of the people who work behind the scenes, from photographers to producers who always make those in front of the camera like me look great, I say thank you. To my cherished friends in this room tonight, my family in this room tonight, my best friend Kathy Morrow, my Link sisters who drove all the way here to support me tonight, my Ascension family, Dr. Shukri David, his wife Dunya, Kyle, Lisbeth, Charlene, and Lou, thank you so much for coming here and supporting me on a night like this. I am eternally grateful for each and every one of you and so very proud of the work we do together in our community. To my beloved husband, Greg, who is at home tonight taking care of my 95-year-old mom who has dementia, I thank him. And our incredible children, Ariel, Brooke, James, Alyssa, Greg Jr., and my son-in-law, Mike, who's in the room tonight. They are wonderful. They are certainly my pride and joy. You are my greatest source, in fact, of pride and joy, and I'm so proud of each and every one of you for following your dreams. I have a marketing executive and a professor. I have a wonderful young lady with the camera over there, my youngest, Brooke, who's dancing on Broadway. My son-in-law, Mike, over there, he's an engineer. I'm proud of all of my kids. Your unwavering love and support have been my anchor through life's highs and lows, so I thank you for being here with me tonight. 4 of our 5 kids are University of Michigan graduates, and so is my husband. Hey. So you all know in this room I live in a divided home, and I am certainly outnumbered, but as a Spartan, I still say with pride, go green, go white. You know, we are all privileged to work in the field of journalism, work that allows us to uplift a community and bring positivity into many, many lives in our community. It's something I take very seriously. So through my mentorship work, I always try to reach one, teach one, and bring them forward. And one of them is in this room tonight. He is a young man I met waiting tables at a country club who had dreams of being a journalist. And I learned tonight he was the very first African-American host at that country club. And that young man had enough courage to come up to me and say, hey, I really want to be a journalist, and can you help me? He used to struggle in school, and at one point had given up on college. But today, through mentorship and a lot of hard work on his part, he is a reporter for our Scripps station here in Lansing. His name is Travis Hicks, and I am so proud of him and all that he has accomplished. To me, that is what the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame is really all about. Sure, we all do great work and work that we're very, very proud of. But when we can look back on our careers and say, I touched a life, I changed a life, and I made a difference in my community, that is something all of us, lucky enough to be named a Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame inductee, should feel proud about on a night like this. So I thank you all for this incredible honor that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
At the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, we look for certain things. Among them, a long history in Michigan journalism, award-winning work that produces change, and influence on others in the profession. That's why Eric Friedman was an easy choice for this year's inductees. He went from one capital to another, Albany, New York, to Lansing, Michigan, where the Detroit News expanded its bureau in the 80s. While he covered a variety of issues, he'll be forever remembered for his role in exposing the House fiscal scandal, a $2 million controversy that led to a prison sentence, the end of some powerful political careers, and the 1994 Pulitzer Prize. After a decade in Lansing, Friedman continued his career in East Lansing at Michigan State University. He rose from an adjunct faculty member to professor to associate dean. And he's run both the Knight Center for Environmental Journalism and the Capitol News Service. It's at the Capitol News Service where he has had a direct influence on hundreds of young journalists, many of whom make headlines in their own right today. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Friedman.
Thank you all. My wife, Mary Ann, says she is responsible for my being up here tonight. In 1976, she supported my move to be a journalist rather than a much higher paid lawyer. In 1984, she very reluctantly moved to Michigan, far from family in New York State and Boston, so I could pursue my career in journalism. She painted walls, mowed lawns, spread mulch, raked leaves, and shoveled snow while I was traveling the world with study abroad and Fulbright programs. She did get to go with me on occasion. She's driven countless miles by herself because I was traveling or at work. A couple of times she drove home alone from visiting family in Colorado. She drove to Long Island for our son's wedding. And she sat beside my hospital bed in Detroit. For 7 weeks last spring. It will be to get better. Excuse me. I told her I wouldn't choke up, but in case that's the part of the speech that Mary Ann wrote. Now my part. But first, I want to thank my colleagues, Dave Polson and Barb Miller, for their immense work in preparing my nomination. And I want to acknowledge my son Ian, daughter Kara, brother Steve, and sister-in-law Randy, who are here tonight from out of state. I am a journalist. We are journalists because truth, facts, and people matter. I've been privileged and humbled to meet, interview, train, and teach some of the world's bravest journalists. These are professionals who risk their freedom, their jobs, and their lives in the mission of reporting the truth, the facts, and remembering the people. You wouldn't recognize their bylines or their voices or their faces, but you would recognize the kind of critical reporting they do on such critical issues as environment and climate, corruption, inequality, abuse of power, dire living conditions, and human rights violations. They belong in a Courage Hall of Fame. I also admire others who made this honor possible since that fateful career choice 48 years ago. Colleagues at the papers where I've worked, news outlets that belong to Capitol News Service, and the faculty and students at our great School of Journalism. They've been mentors, research collaborators, fellow teachers, wise editors, well, usually wise editors, motivators, and inspirations. They all made my work better. I'll close with the words of that great philosopher, intrepid traveler, creative problem solver, and storyteller, Frodo Baggins. I told no lies, and of the truth, all I could. Thank you.
Jeff Gilbert's induction into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame can be summed up in one word: cars.
Hi, I'm WWJ Auto Beat reporter Jeff Gilbert at the Paris Auto Show.
As the guy who has spent the last 2 decades on the auto beat for WWJ Radio in the car capital of the world, he knows practically everything there is to know about what's happening in the auto industry.
This is Jeff Gilbert with the Car Chronicles.
His Car Chronicles feature is heard daily, not just in Detroit, but at CBS stations across the country. And his job isn't just behind the mic.
These are comfy seats.
Over the years, Jeff estimates that he's been behind the wheel of more than 1,000 cars and trucks. That could be one of the reasons he has picked up more than a dozen Associated Press awards for his reporting. But it's not just the folks at the AP who recognize Jeff's expertise. He's the president of the jury that decides the North American Car, Truck, and Utility of the Year, one of the top prizes in the auto world. It's the icing on the cake for a man with a career that has spent almost 50 years in broadcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Gilbert.
Okay, the tall guy's got to lift the microphone up a little bit. I'm used to working with these things, so it's no problem. I could have actually fixed the audio for you if you would have asked me to. Anyhow, thank you all very much. I'm reminded of Groucho Marx's words long ago, who said I would never want to be a part of any organization that would have me as a member. But this is an exception. I mean, this is an outstanding group of journalists here, and I really am humbled to be among these people. And the summary there talked about my time covering autos. And a lot of my friends and people at the radio station who see me think that that's all I do because they see a bunch of different cool cars and they don't notice the cars that aren't so cool. But as mentioned, I've been doing this almost 50 years. It'll be 50 years this year. I've done a ton of general assignment reporting ahead of time. I've been a manager. I have been, I hate to admit this, I've even been a disc jockey. And this is the greatest business in the world, the broadcasting and the journalism part of it, because it allows you to do just so many great things, see so many great things, meet so many wonderful people, and particularly work and live with wonderful people. So I've got a lot of them to thank. I want to start with the people that I work for who have given me so much support through the many years. Rob Davidek, our brand manager, is here. Pete Kowalski, yeah, give him some applause. We don't usually do that every day, but he deserves them. Pete Kowalski, who's our station manager, Debbie Kenyon, our market manager. I thank them all for their support, allowing me to do a job that I love. And special thanks to Barry Martin over there. He's the person who nominated me. We go back to 1978 in Pittsburgh, and he is actually the person who brought me here to Detroit in 1986 as news director for what was then the country stations, W4 and WCXI. We did some pretty good work there, and then I moved over to WJ, and it has been a great ride, 34 years here. And especially my family and friends, I've got a great rooting section there. They filled up 2 tables, particularly my wife Sherry, my son Christopher. Christopher's here with his lovely wife Flory. Sherry's here with her lovely husband, me. Anyhow, I am extraordinarily proud of them. Their education dwarfs anything I have done. They are both physicians. Sherry here in Lansing at Carmanos Cancer Center. Christopher is a neurology resident at Trinity in Grand Rapids. Wisely, he followed in his mother's footsteps, not his father's. I probably shouldn't mention that to this group, but hey, I think it's going to serve him well. But having 2 very intelligent, very accomplished people around me tends to make you humble. And that's kind of the message that I want to have tonight, because this is a wonderful business. But one thing I think we could use an infusion of is humility. Not humiliation, we get that from time to time, but humility, because we take what we do extraordinarily seriously, and I think we always should take what we do seriously, but maybe we shouldn't take ourselves as serious, because after meeting my wife and meeting people in other walks of life, because as we know, this can be an insular business, and I got married late, and I was in the news bubble for many years where all of my friends were in this business in either journalism or broadcasting, and then you meet somebody in another business. Then you start covering a business like the automotive world, and you see the education of these people, you see the accomplishments of these people, and it can't do anything but humble you and realize there are a lot of people out there, and for us, it's about doing our job and getting information to them in an unbiased, straightforward way. I mean, let's face it, we all have the temptation with social media to post our opinions out there, and as I like to say, any idiot can post their opinion on social media, and they usually do. But, you know, for us, only my closest friends really know my political opinions. That doesn't mean I'm not passionate about it. That doesn't mean I don't have deeply felt opinions. But I feel by keeping that out of the conversation, it makes the words that I say on the radio more powerful, because nobody thinks of me as a political supporter of any side, somebody who supports or opposes a car company or anything like that. And that is a trust that we build on with the job we do. And boy, the temptation is there when you see what people post sometimes to get back and forth, especially in an election year. But I think, you know, our ability to stay actually above the fray gives more strength to what we do. So as I go forward, please connect with me on social media. You'll see vacation pictures, family pictures, but we're not going to argue about politics. And I promise you, my reporting will be filled with honesty and maybe a little more humility. So thank you again for this great honor.
When Larry Lee joined Gongwer in 1970, neither Larry nor Gongwer would ever be the same. He was promoted to editor in 1972, but continued to report. And he transformed a basic newsletter that listed what was happening to a must-read for Capitol insiders and others who wanted to know what was really going on. He did that through innovation, covering the budget from its earliest meetings, moving from daily briefs to actually breaking news, going online in 1993, becoming one of the first Michigan news organizations to do so, and making it subscription-based to keep Gongwer afloat. Larry built a bill tracker, finding another way to make the site indispensable to people in politics. He also created Michigan Media Clips, aggregating content before aggregation was cool, and making it the way for movers and shakers to start their day. As the respect for Gongwer grew, so did the respect for Larry. He went from editor to part owner before retiring in 2009. And he not only hired and mentored reporters throughout his career, he established a scholarship at MSU to kickstart the next generation of journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Lee.
Good evening. Man, a night like this is so cool to put a spotlight on just wonderful journalists, and I could not be more honored to be part of this group tonight. Thank you a lot to Tim Voss and the Journalism Hall of Fame Committee for bestowing this honor on me. I will carry it forever. Deep gratitude to Zach Gorchow, the terrific leader of Gongwer in Michigan. He was my advocate general for this. I know it takes a lot of work to put all this together. He rounded up all the letters of support. I know those were so critical to this happening for me tonight. I also have a lot of members of my family here tonight, and I'm so delighted they're here. My brother Bob, brother Bill, brother Mike. They keep so much around me positive, and I appreciate that. my nephews Dan and Kevin, my niece Linda. They provide so much optimism and innovation, and I love being around them. You know, you don't find yourself standing here at a moment like this without a lot of people providing guidance and support and opportunities, especially opportunities, which is what I want to focus on tonight. So where to begin? Well, my parents, of course, they raised us on a farm in Marion, not far from Cadillac, and they urged us to find a career we enjoyed. And they also set examples of hard work to get to your goals and really set standards for honesty and integrity that really have served me exceptionally well. So it's important to know that these farm parents raised their 5 boys and sent them all to Michigan State University, where we each got our undergraduate degrees. And we're missing one of the brothers, John, who was the other journalist in our family, and he passed away 4 years ago. But boy, would this be a night he would have liked. There's so many others. I mean, my opportunities, that's why I focus on it. Just amazing opportunities again and again, starting with Dr. Mary Gardner. Of course, a lot of you know Dr. Gardner. She was a very rigorous professor here. She was also my academic advisor. She was famous for a lot of things, including that you needed to create a go-to-hell fund when you were out there in the workplace, so you could leave when you needed to. She also was very, very insistent that when you went out as a student and got an internship, it should be a paid internship. So one summer, I was still working at the farm in the summers, and I asked Robert Sharp, who was the editor of my hometown weekly newspaper, the Marion Press, which I have to say is still being published in this changing world, so that's pretty important. I asked him for a paid internship, and amazingly, he agreed. Something that had never happened before there. So he assigned me to write stories, take photos, get ads, work on layout, go to the printing plant. So, you know, you got just a great look at what it takes to put a newspaper out. Then Dick Wheeler. When I graduated, he had recently come to Lansing to run the Gongwer News Bureau. And he'd seen my work at the Capitol Beat for the State News and asked me to join his staff. What did I know about Gongwer? Probably not much more than you guys here, a lot of you anyway. I knew it was daily, I knew it was printed, and I knew that it went to subscription only to basically high-level decision makers. I also knew that we had to stay late at night, and you never knew how long, to print it on 8.5 by 14-inch paper, stuff it in envelopes, and haul it to the post office. So in part because of that, I'm sure, my late great friend Malcolm Johnson would kid me every now and then, probably more often than not, about working for an obscure mail-order news service. 2 years later, Dick Wheeler then went to Wisconsin, and he successfully pushed to have me named editor. At the same time, Al Miller came to Lansing to run the business side of Gongwer and juggle duties as a reporter. He was great at creating a professional culture for our group and where we valued each other as journalists and as individuals. For the next 4 decades, we worked very closely to modernize our operations, increase staff, change formats, adopt computer technology, and as the video said, go on the web, behind a paywall. It has been an amazing journey. In 1992, Bill Baird, who had been Gongwer's owner since way before I joined, entrusted Al, me, and Bob Drumheller to run the operations in Ohio and in Michigan when he suffered an untimely death. In a few years, we had transformed entirely to a digital format, began introducing a series of cutting-edge technologies to improve how our subscribers accessed what we did. The opportunities I've had were also amazing in terms of the people I got to work with. John Lindstrom, a brilliant writer who just had everything to offer on our staff. He could put stories in historical perspective in ways I could never appreciate. Chris Klaver came to us with skills as a journalist, but took it upon himself to learn the mind-boggling intricacies of computer code and the inner workings of creating web pages. So Mom and Dad, did I enjoy what I did? Oh my gosh, I did. I loved being a journalist at the Capitol. I was so privileged to be part of what we call, as journalists, writing the first draft of history, and do it in a political environment where, at the best of times, people can come together and solve issues. That is, in the best of times. Doesn't always happen. I did look forward to coming to work every day with all the exceptional people in the Gongor family, many here tonight, and I am so grateful. You, as much as anybody, are responsible for this award for making Gongor such an indispensable part of the Capitol culture. This is not something I ever could have expected, and so I am so appreciative and grateful forever for that. My gratitude could not be greater. Thank you.
Honorees, will you stand up? Let's congratulate these 6 fantastic journalists. Thanks for coming this evening. Please feel as if you can stay for the next 2 hours because we do have the room for the next 2 hours. Coffee is in the back. The bar is still open. Enjoy each other's company, all right? Thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you.